When you think of government, you probably think of politicians arguing. But who actually delivers your mail, paves your roads, or runs your national parks? That's public administration. It's the operating system of government, the machinery that turns laws and policies into real-world services. We're going to explore the principles, or core ideas, that guide this entire process, from its classical origins focused on structure to its modern era focused on values. At its heart, public administration has always tried to answer a few key questions. How do we build a system that actually works? How do we make it efficient so it doesn't waste taxpayer money? How do we make sure it's effective and actually solves the problems it's supposed to solve? And most importantly, how do we make sure this powerful machinery is accountable to the people and serves everyone fairly? The first person to try and build this machine scientifically was Max Weber, a German sociologist. When you hear the word bureaucracy, you probably think of red tape and slow. But for Weber, bureaucracy was a beautiful ideal. His goal was to replace the old systems where your Uncle Joe the Duke got you a government job with a new system based purely on logic, rules, and merit. Weber's ideal model was built on a few key principles. First, a clear hierarchy, so everyone knows who their boss is. Second, specialization, or a division of labor, so everyone has one specific job they get really good at. Third, a heavy reliance on rules, so that decisions are consistent. And finally, impersonality. This is a big one. It means the law is applied the same to everyone, whether you're rich or poor, a friend or a stranger. At the same time in France, an engineer named Henry Fayle was looking at the same problem, but from the manager's perspective. He believed that all administration, whether in a business or a government, was built on a set of universal principles. He came up with 14 of them, but his most famous contribution was boiling down the job of a manager into 5 key functions. Fayle said that every single manager, from a post office supervisor to a CEO, performs 5 basic functions. First, they plan, looking ahead to set goals. Second, they organize, or build the team and structure to meet those goals. Third, they command, which means directing and leading their staff. Fourth, they coordinate, making sure all the different parts are working together. And finally, they control, which means checking to make sure the final result matches the original plan. A few years later, an American thinker named Luther Gulick took Fayle's ideas and turned them into the most famous acronym in public administration, POSDCORB. This wasn't just a theory. It was a practical checklist for any public manager. If you were running a new government agency, you would literally go down this list to make sure you had all your bases covered. POSDCORB is the how-to guide for classical administration. You plan your goals, you organize the structure, you staff it with the right people, you direct that staff, you coordinate their efforts, you report your progress up the chain of command, and most importantly, you budget for the whole thing, because nothing in government happens without a financial plan. The main goal of this entire classical era, from Weber to Gulick, was one thing: efficiency. They were trying to build a perfect, frictionless machine to deliver government services on a massive scale. And in many ways, it worked. It's stable and predictable. The problem, as anyone who has ever waited at the DMV knows, is that a machine can be incredibly slow, rigid, and impersonal to the point of being dehumanizing. By the 1970s and 80s, people were getting fed up with this rigid machine. They started asking, who cares if it's efficient, if it doesn't actually work for me? This sparked the new public management movement. The focus shifted from process to results. This didn't mean the old principles died, but it meant they were about to be joined by a new, more powerful set of modern principles based on values. The most important modern principle is accountability. This is the non-negotiable prime directive of public service. It's the obligation of any public servant, from a police officer to a city manager, to answer for their actions. If they have power, they must be accountable to someone, to the public, to the mayor, to the law, for how they use it. But you can't have accountability if you don't know what's going on. That's why the second modern principle is transparency. It means government must operate in the sunlight. Citizens have a right to see what their government is doing. This is why we have open meeting laws, why budgets are public documents, and why you can file a Freedom of Information Act, FOIA, request to get government records. The modern era also updated the old idea of efficiency. It added a partner, effectiveness. Efficiency is doing things right, like processing 100 applications per hour. But effectiveness is doing the right things, like, is this application actually helping someone? A truly good public administrator tries to be both. They don't just want to process claims efficiently, they want to reduce poverty effectively. This might be the most important social principle in modern administration. Equity. It's often confused with equality. Equality means everyone gets the same thing, but equity means everyone gets what they need to succeed. If you give everyone a size 10 shoe, that's equality. But it's only equity if you give each person a shoe that actually fits their foot. For government, this means actively designing services to be fair for all communities, not just the easiest ones to reach. The antidote to the old rigid bureaucracy is responsiveness. A modern public agency can't just say, that's the rule, take it or leave it. It must be responsive to the people it serves. This is why cities have 311 hotlines for service requests, why agencies conduct citizen surveys, and why town hall meetings exist, to create a feedback loop so the government can adapt to what the people actually need. Going one step further, many modern agencies try to build in participation. Instead of just responding to complaints, they involve citizens in the process from the beginning. This idea of pluralism means recognizing that society is full of different groups with different, often competing, needs. The administrator's job isn't to pick one winner, but to be a referee who balances all those needs to find a fair solution. None of the other principles matter if you don't have integrity and ethics. This is the moral compass that builds public trust. Integrity means a public servant is working for the public good, not for personal gain. This is why we have anti-corruption laws, codes of conduct, and protections for whistleblowers who expose wrongdoing. Without this trust, the entire system collapses. None of the other principles matter if you don't have integrity and ethics. This is the moral compass that builds public trust. Integrity means a public servant is working for the public good, not for personal gain. This is why we have anti-corruption laws, codes of conduct, and protections for whistleblowers who expose wrongdoing. Without this trust, the entire system collapses. So, what's the new checklist? If the classical era gave us POSDCORB, the modern era has given us a new set of expectations. We still need planning and budgeting, but we now demand that public administrators be participatory, accountable, transparent, and equitable. The old machine is being retooled to be more adaptive, more human-centered, and more focused on democratic values. In the end, you can see that public administration is a constant, difficult balancing act. How do you balance the need to be fast with the need to be fair? How do you balance the efficiency of a top-down rule with the participation of getting citizen input? The goal is not to find one perfect answer, but to build a system that is both efficient in its operation and democratic in its values.